Hi, welcome to ThinkTech. We are raising awareness of technology, energy, globalism, and diversification. This show is the diversification part of that program. We are the Arts in Hawaii. I am your host, Donna Blanchard, very proud managing director of Kumukuhui Theater, which is right here, very close to our station. Station is in Pioneer Plaza in the heart of downtown Honolulu. Kumukuhui Theater is right across the courtyard. Today we're going to be talking with John Wat. We'll get to John in just a moment. First, I'm going to let you know that we broadcast live on the internet every weekday. All of our shows are streamed on ustream.tv and Spreaker.com. And if you would like to see our shows, check out any of our archives, any of our previous shows, go to thinktechhawaii.com. If you'd like to join us in our downtown studio, email Jay, that's J-A-Y, at thinktechhawaii.com. Now, to my guest, I'm very pleased to introduce you to John Wat. He is a local actor, director, dancer, writer, and teacher, and more things than he put in his bio. He's currently directing Glass, a new play that runs for 2 weeks at Mid-Pacific Institute in April and May, and then tours the Edinburgh International Fringe Festival in August. He has some students who are privileged to call him their instructor, and I'm privileged to have you here on the show, John. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna.
That was some intro, huh? First of all, let's talk about Glass, because the concept of it is so interesting. You are devising a piece along with your students. So can you start from the beginning on that? How were you inspired?
Well, I was casting about for a show idea, and I heard a little snippet of an interview with composer Philip Glass on public radio, and it was they asked him about his process. They said, we know what it's like for an audience when you hear new work. What's it like for the composer when you start working on something? And he said, fear. He had that one-word answer. And they laughed about it, and then he went on to explain that anytime you think about writing a new symphony, it's like you're in the company of Beethoven and Bach and Mozart, and it's very daunting. But once you start, you have to continue. And I thought, wow, what a great statement of artistic process, and I could talk to my students about that. And that was the seed. And then we said, okay, let's write something about Philip Glass, but let's write something about any kind of idea of glass you can think of. Window, stained glass, mirror. So that's how we started, and we've been working on it for about a year, writing, and now we're already in rehearsal, but we're still writing, and we're still trying to figure out what it is the show's going to be about. So.
Oh, wait. You're still trying to figure out what it's going to be about.
Well, we kind of know it. It's about the creative process.
Yeah.
We actually have created a main character, and it's a woman, a girl named Clara, who is some kind of performing artist, and she's stuck. She can't get her process going. She can't create, and she's trying to figure out how to get started, and she stumbles upon Philip Glass and tries to get some inspiration from his work. So,
I like that.
And then it's
Art
a love story,
imitating life.
Yeah, and then we almost have to throw in a love story too. So she has a friend who's a visual artist, or visual and plastic arts. He blows glass and paints, and he wants to be more than a friend. And she's completely oblivious to it in the beginning, but of course, something will happen. We're pretty sure.
Something will happen eventually. Yeah. So when you say to your students, let's devise a show that just is focused on the word glass, what's their initial reaction? What did you get?
A couple things. One is you get a lot of excitement, and then as you progress, you get more excitement, and then people are just going all over the place. But then as you get closer to the time when you have to do the show, then the anxiety level starts to rise up, and you get that fear kind of factor that Philip Glass talks about, where you think, oh, this has to be great, but what do we have, and where are we going with this, and how do all these pieces fit together? So that's kind of exciting.
Because excitement and fear are basically the same thing.
Pretty much,
they're just what happens in the brain is a little different, but the physical manifestation is the same.
So, and I think it also kind of engages the students in a kind of way that makes them even more creative, because they're kind of under the gun. They're starting to think about, oh, this has to be, great. Otherwise, what are we doing? And so they start to work harder. They're very focused in their work.
Yeah.
And then we've worked. I've had a lot of experience in working with like creative writing and other kinds of creative endeavors where you make stuff up. And so I have some kind of process. Like, we met over the summer and we'd have lunch and sit around and I'd say, okay, let's talk about anything to do with glass. You have 5 minutes to write something. And they would write continuously for 5 minutes, and some of those scenes are in the show because what they write in 5 minutes is sometimes genius.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really junk, but sometimes it's genius.
Sometimes you get out of the way of the genius when you do something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you say you've been working on it for a year in class? In class,
out of class. I started with my advanced theater studies class last spring, my seniors, and I said, let's do some research. So they researched filled glass. They looked up scientific articles on glass. They looked up, mirrors, looking glasses, microscopes, telescopes, the history of glass, how glass is made, glass, all kinds of stuff. One girl went home and she filled up all her glassware with different levels of water and made that little, finger around the rim, and made me 9 little short musical pieces based on just fooling around.
You have some awesome students.
Yeah, I do. I have some amazing, amazing students.
So the students involved in it are all different ages in high school?
Yeah. So we have freshmen through seniors, and actually some of the graduating seniors last year worked on the initial stages of the project. So.
Oh, okay.
So they all get credited. So in terms of, who wrote the piece, it's like a group of like 40 people.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And has it been egalitarian, or has it been like a consensus derived through consensus, or is it more you saying this works, this does not?
Mostly, it's mostly me saying this works, this doesn't. So I'm like the kind of gatherer and the person who kind of puts things together. But I also talk to students and see what they think about stuff. And usually the pieces that we select are pretty much acclaimed by the students. You can when we read them out, you can tell already immediately. Everybody goes, oh, that was really, really good.
Yeah. Have you done anything like this with students before?
I've done similar kinds of projects, not one exactly like this. At mid-pac I've directed probably 4 other shows that we wrote. In 2008 we wrote a show called 100 Years of Manoa to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the school in Manoa. And about half of that was history text that we adapted, history of the school we adapted, and the other half was stories that we knew about the campus, a ghost story about Kauai, our building, a story about Maxine Hong Kingston, who wrote The Woman Warrior when she was teaching at mid-pac, things like that. So, and then we put that all together. And then a story about Kite Day, which was a tradition that had been kind of dead for about 15 or 20 years, and now we have Kite Day because we did the show and they brought it back, so it was kind of cool.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So I've done that show, and then in 2000 I wrote a show called, with a few of my students, called The Only Dance There Is, which was a collaboration between the theater department and the dance department. So it was a show with dance, and it was me and a few of my students, not all of the students, but a few of our students actually wrote the script for that together. That was a really good show too. And then I've had a couple poetry shows where in 2003 we were at the Fringe in Edinburgh and we saw Deaf Poetry Jam, the Broadway cast of Deaf Poetry Jam. So we came back and the kids said, we want to do a show like that. So I gathered a bunch of kids and I said, okay, if you want to be in the show, you have to be able to act and perform, but you also have to be able to write. And then we started, I think we did the show in the spring, and we started, 3 months in advance, and went to Starbucks and wrote poetry. Once a week we'd write poetry, once or twice a week we'd write poetry, and then we put it all together in a show.
But it sounds like what you're doing now is the one piece that has been written by just one single inspiration with its own arc and development. Yeah. So I can understand being inspired, and I don't want to belabor this too much. I can understand being inspired by your original story with Philip Glass,
Right.
but to say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to spend a year working with my students on this, and we are going to build a piece, and it's going to go. Did it have anything to do with the Network of Ensemble Theater Festival that was here? Any conversations there, or had you already started it by then?
We'd actually already started by then, but you know, I mean, that's kind of like serendipity, that conference, because I went there and heard a lot about different ways of working, went to workshops, learned about different ways of working, got reinforced in ways I already knew, and then reconnected with some old friends, you know, who work in interesting ways. Kathy Randall from New Orleans, who I knew from graduate school. So it all comes together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about that show in particular? What are your dates? How do people get tickets?
We open April 25th. We run for 2 weekends. We do not run on April 26th because we have the prom on April 26th.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
But we run the following weekend on May 3rd, I think it is. We run a matinee and an evening performance to make up for that. So we have 6 performances.
And people go to the mid-pac website to get tickets?
You can go to the mid-pac website. There's a phone number. That's 973-5066. And that's for tickets and information.
Okay.
And it's cheap. It's cheap theater.
Well, it's an awesome opportunity for the students, and sometimes you see the most amazing work come out of high schools.
I frankly think that at mid-pac we do some of the most amazing work in the state.
It sounds like it is fearless, and that's a great cornerstone to start off with. I've also seen a lot of really horrible theater at high schools. I think that usually when people are trying to play it safe and get it right, and there's no room for that.
Well, we're a school of the arts, so we pride ourselves in our work, in our ability to work at a very high level and a very challenging level for the students. So, you know, we do stuff that I tell my students, you're so lucky because most high school students across the country don't get the kind of experience you're going to get here. So we've done, you know, we do Shakespeare kind of regularly at a very high level. And we do, you know, other classics. Like we've done Chekhov at our school. And almost no high school student gets to do Chekhov.
Right.
And I think we do it very well. And then we have original projects. And then we also have musicals, too. Yeah, so they get a wide range of experience.
Cool.
And it's good for them.
And you come to them with a wide range of experience yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the information that you said. I know John. I've known John for since I've been on the island. He's one of the board members at Kumukugwe Theater. But I didn't even know about some of this stuff that you've worked on, editing a book of plays that are written by Hawaii playwrights.
Right.
What plays are in there?
And I have to correct you, it's not Hawaii playwrights, although they are from Hawaii. It's Hawaiian playwrights. It's Native Hawaiian playwrights.
Okay.
And I believe it's the only anthology of Native Hawaiian playwrights published so far.
Oh.
So, I mean, the title of the book is Heleoho, and we thought it means a new leaf. You know, so we thought it'd be a great, or a new, you know, it's a new voice, actually. And it's kind of an introduction to plays by Native Hawaiian playwrights. So we have Lee Cataluna's The Mea, Alani Apio's Kamau, Vicky Newbell's Kavaiola, which was done at HTY, and then Tammy Haleopua Baker's, what is her play called? It's two plays about that are translated from legends. So.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Okay, we got to take a break.
Okay.
We'll be right back. This is the Arts in Hawaii on the ThinkTech Hawaii digital series. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Jay Fagdell of ThinkTech. On March 27th at the YWCA downtown, Laniakea, we're having a luncheon program, a luncheon panel program we call the Midterm Legislative Report. We're going to present our 2014 Legislative Midterm Update, featuring Bob Toyofuku of Hawaii Advocates as our moderator, and a panel of leading state finance officials who will tell you about what's going on in the legislature about money this session. This is really important. Senator David Ige, Chair of the Senate Ways and Means Committee, Representative Aaron Ling Johansson, Co-Vice Chair of the House Finance Committee, Representative Sylvia Luke, Chair of the House Finance Committee, Calbert Young, State Budget and Finance Director, all the people who are very important, who know about the state fiscal policy, the state finances this session. You know, they say we have a spare $884 million. How much do we really have? The Council of Revenues changed its mind about projections. And how are we going to spend that money or not? What effect will our, current $40 billion of unfunded liabilities have on all of this? And in an election year, what are the real priorities that are going to determine the money bills and the final result of the 2014 legislature as far as you are concerned? We'll cover current fiscal issues, bills of interest of the business community, and we'll look at the provisions, political dynamics, probabilities, price tags of crossover and passage this year. It'll be very interesting to find out what is going to happen here as far as your bills are concerned and as far as state initiatives are concerned. It's an essential program for anybody who wants to know the fiscal state of the state, or if you want to network with the legislators and like-minded attendees who are likewise interested in the subject. Sign up on ThinkTechHawaii.com. We look forward to seeing you there. Aloha.
Hi, we're back and we're live. This is the Arts in Hawaii on the ThinkTech Hawaii digital series. I am your host, Donna Blanchard, proud managing director of Kumukuhua Theater, and I'm talking with John Wat, who is an artist at large. Actor, director, writer, teacher, editor, dancer, board member. Let's talk about what else you're working on right now. You're going to be in a show at Kumukuhua Theater.
Yes. I just told my students that if my life weren't crazy enough, I accepted a role in Koi Like the Fish, which will be the show following the show that's going to be up in a few weeks, Cock-a-Doodle-Doo. So that show goes up in end of May. And I guess I'm going to be Koi. You're
playing Koi in Koi Like a Fish, which is a very meaty, it's one of those dream roles, I think, for any actor to be able to play someone with that amount of depth in that time of his life, that there's a lot going on. It's almost, that character, I think, is almost Shepherd-esque in that he's so much turmoil going on within and without. I'm anxious to see where you go with that.
I am too.
Yeah.
I'm excited about the opportunity to play the character. I was so busy that I thought I'm not even going to look at the play, and then the director sort of asked me to look at it, and the part kind of called me.
Yeah.
The character is, my age, and a lot of the issues that he's dealing with, I haven't had to deal with them like he has to deal with them, but I've had to deal with the other end of it, like being a caretaker for, elderly parents and things like that. So
yeah,
it's exciting to work in a play like this.
Yeah, I think that it did call to you. It's kind of speaking to you. And when I read the script, I immediately thought of you doing that. I did. So I'm interested in that you work a lot more often in directing, working with your students on the other side of theater, to be getting back on stage after having a few years off. Is it primarily what feelings come to you when you...
Fear.
Again, so there's a theme in your life now. Yeah. I'm sensing, John.
Well, part of it is, I like to act. I primarily direct because I think I'm a better director or a stronger director. And when I'm directing, I want to act. And when I'm acting, I want to direct.
Because it's always easier on the other side.
Yeah, that actor-director kind of dichotomy. A lot of my friends talk about it the same way. Because when you're acting, you think, oh, I could fix everything if I could direct, And then when you're directing, you think, oh, if I only just had to do one part, I could really work on it instead of thinking of all these other things. But it's been a while since I've had a major role too. I've done a bunch of small roles, and that's much easier. I'm getting to the point where I looked at the script and thought about all the lines, and I went, oh, yeah. I'm going to have to work here. So
that is a muscle that I thoroughly believe. You get that muscle in shape, and for one period of my life, I was doing pretty much show after show, and I could memorize lines like nobody's business. And it was a matter of understanding what I was doing and getting into the rhythm of the character, and it just came out. And the last time I had to memorize lines, that didn't happen. I just had to work hard. So good, but you have there's plenty of time to do that. You're working with Will Kahele and Justin Fragio. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. It sounds like it's going to be a good team of people.
Yeah, and I've seen the cast too. The cast is going to be great to work with.
Yeah. Who else is in the cast?
Danny Zalapany, Aiko is in it, and
Aiko Chinen. And Jonathan Rain?
Yeah, Jonathan I've seen work. I haven't worked with him before. But I saw him work in the Shakespeare Festival, so I'm excited to work with him as well.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember who else is in the cast, but it's a pretty strong cast.
It's a good cast. It's going to be an excellent show. It's the season closer for Kumukuhua this year, and I think a very strong one. You're also part of the Hawaii Speech League? Yeah,
as part of my faculty responsibilities, I advise in different clubs and things, and one of them is I'm the advisor for the speech and debate team at Mid-Pacific, so I'm also I guess the District 1 representative on the board of the Hawaii Speech League. So.
Oh, and you've been doing that for a while?
A few years, yeah.
Do you think I was involved in speech contests when I was in high school, and do you think there's a lot of differences? Do you think that art has changed a great deal, speech giving?
I'm not sure. Speech contests are interesting, and debates are interesting as well. I tell my actors if they want to do speech, it's a really good way to, keep your chops, because interpretive speech is a 10-minute monologue pretty much, and storytelling as well. And our philosophy at Mid-Pacific, although in the competitive field you see a lot of kids who are just trying to be showy, they want to show off all their chops, and that sometimes wins a competitive speech contest. We like to tell our students that we're interested in their interest in a literary piece that has some depth and meaning to it, and isn't necessarily going to be the piece that wins, or the piece that shows off their talents as an actor, but something that is interesting to them as literature, something that's interesting to them as story that they can work with and understand. And if I think about my own history, I started off not as a stage actor, but as a performer of literature. So that's
a performer of literature.
I guess that kind of is how I began, is because I took a class in what was called interpretative reading at that time, but now it's called performance of literature. And it was a class where we performed poems and short stories, and it was in the speech department at UH. And the first time I stood up to perform a poem, something moved me about it. Yeah, and it was a kind of a aggressive, crazy poem called "Killing" by a guy who I think used to teach at Punahou, called "Killing," about a guy who the poem is about a man who goes into the mangrove and kills wild dogs. And when I finished the poem, I sat down next to one of my classmates. She said, "I don't know if I want to sit next to you anymore." And I thought, oh, there's something here. There's something exciting.
So wait a minute. When you're performing literature, when you're performing a poem, this is not a staged reading. This is you have the poem in your hand.
No, It's memorized.
It's memorized, and it is as though you are delivering a monologue.
Yes. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, and the genre competition allows you to do all kinds of different things. So you could do a short story and play all the characters and play the narrative voice too. There's a kind of aesthetic, there's kind of way of doing it. And so that's what I started as. And then as I did that, then I wanted to know more about performing. And then the first class I took was that, and then the second class I took in speech was a class called Story Theater, which my good friend and I signed up for, and my good friend Keith Kashiwada, by the way, who is also a director, although he's somewhat retired, and used to be on the board at Kumu as well. He and I signed up for this second class called Story Theater because we liked the professor so much, and we went there and we realized it was all the best performers that we knew, and we said, should we stay? And I said, we should stay. We shouldn't drop this class, maybe we'll learn something. But it turned out to be a directing class and not necessarily a performance class. It was about adapting narrative for the stage and directing it. And
not actually doing the adaptation as well?
Absolutely, doing the adaptation and then casting it from your classmates and directing, you know, whatever. I think we started off with 10-minute pieces. And that immediately, because both of us were English students, you know, immediately we went to the head of the class, and we knew how to read text, we knew how to translate it into performance.
You knew what the characters wanted, why they wanted it,
yep.
just from looking at the words. Which, yeah, when earlier when you were talking about your students doing Chekhov, you're one of the few people I know who could teach high school students Chekhov because you understand the nuances of the human condition that. Sometimes Chekhov does not make it really easy to understand the nuances of his characters. And that is so key. That's why, also a reason why I think that avid readers make really excellent actors and directors.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm still intrigued that the class was called Story Theater, but it was about adaptation and directing.
Right, absolutely.
Well, that's very cool. And you just kind of fell into that because of the name of the class, and look where you are.
Actually, I signed up for that class because I really liked the professor. I thought when his performance class, he was an exciting teacher, and I just signed up for that. And then in Story Theater, I found what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, kind of. So, I mean, eventually, that professor went back to the mainland, and eventually my friend Keith and I followed him to the University of North Carolina to do our master's degrees. And we, you know, so we're still in touch with him, and we still do work. So that's kind of exciting.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And then how did you end up at Northwestern?
Well, I finished my master's degree at North Carolina, and one of the projects we had to do was a Living Scholar project, and I followed the work of an ethnographer named Dwight Conquergood, and he was teaching at Northwestern. So I had some contact with him. I studied all of his work, and then after North Carolina, I went to do PhD work at Northwestern. I mean, I was already excited about going there, and he came down to North Carolina and to do some work with one of our professors who was finishing her PhD, and he took me to lunch one day, and he said, I actually also came here for a double reason. I want you to come to Northwestern. So I said, okay, I want to come.
Wow.
And I want to study with you. So.
Yeah, good stories. There's sort of a synchronicity about your life.
Oh, yeah.
That, yeah. We're going to take another break. We'll be right back in just a minute. This is the Arts in Hawaii on the ThinkTech Hawaii Digital Series. We'll be right back.
I'm Jay Fidel. That's Sharon Moriwaki of the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum. And every Wednesday we have Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy. We've been doing it for some time now, and we have some fantastic guests on there, unbelievable guests who give us insight into what is going on in a very complex, sometimes very confusing, sometimes very disappointing area of progress in the state. So we love doing this. We love meeting them. We love talking to them. We love having their ideas out on the table. So maybe, just maybe, we can all make some sense of what's going on. Sharon, what do you anything.
I think that's absolutely correct. We enjoy ourselves meeting with all these people and hearing about the energy and the state of clean energy, and hopefully we advance clean energy for the state. So it's terrific. Join us.
Okay, it's every Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday is Energy Day. Every Wednesday, 4 to 5 p.m. Hawaii, the state of clean energy, here on ThinkTech Hawaii. We'll see you there. I'm Jay Feige.
Hi, we're back and we're live. This is the Arts in Hawaii on the ThinkTech Hawaii digital series. We are coming to you from Pioneer Plaza in the heart of downtown Honolulu, very close to Kumukuhoi Theater. And we're continuing our conversation with John Wat. I don't even, you got so much going on. Let's go to, let's talk about your next step after you went to Northwestern and you came back home. And how did that education manifest itself when you came back?
Well, I mean, it actually started before I left to go to graduate school. When I was at UH taking speech classes, I made it a kind of political point to only perform work that was local. And I had a storytelling teacher who was a wonderful woman, but originally from the mainland, who wanted us to do, you know, canonical kinds of literature. And,
canonical? I don't know that term.
Dead white guys.
Oh, that's what that means?
Well, no, I mean, when in English literature, when they talk about the canon, it's, you know, all the famous writers.
Oh,
yeah?
Okay.
It's all the famous writers, and it's changing. You know, there are lots of women writers now included in the canon, and lots of minority writers. But I made it a political point to do work from Hawaii, and then when I went to graduate school, I continued to do that, and then when I came home. My friend Keith was already back home and was already involved with Kumukuhua, and then I kind of drifted into Kumukuhua as well, although it was the only place that seemed to fit for me.
Well, because our mission is to develop playwrights here and do everything we can to produce those playwrights so that everything is by and or about people who are here.
And I was also involved with Bamboo Ridge as well. When I was in graduate school, I would come back summers and I went to a couple of conferences, and then I was invited by Juliet Kono Lee, who is a poet, to come to the Bamboo Ridge Writers Group, and then continue. I just continued more work, and I sat on the board of directors at Bamboo Ridge as well. And Hileoho is published by them as well. So.
Oh, okay. Have you done any original writing yourself, or I know that you've done adaptive writing?
A little bit. I mean, the piece that we wrote in 2000 with the dancers was stuff that was part adaptation but part writing created as well. So.
Oh, and speaking of that, you also dance.
Well, I'm sort of retired as a dancer, although I do the Nutcracker every year for Hawaii State Ballet, and that part is not so much a dance part, but as much more an acting part. But I was very lucky at a kind of advanced age for a dancer to start to take a few classes with Betty Jones and Dance as We Dance, and then was lucky enough very early in my dance education to be asked to understudy a part in a big Limon piece that they were doing called Misa Brevis. And then one day I was sitting around at rehearsal and counting the number of dancers, and I went, they don't have enough guys, I'm going to get to dance. So
How long ago was that?
Gosh, 1994, 3 or 4, something like that, about 10 or 11 years ago.
20.
Oh no, 20 years. Yeah. My math is bad. 20
That's
years
okay.
ago. Yeah.
You teach acting. That's okay.
I forget what year we're in. Yeah, 20 years ago. Yeah, it was 20 years ago.
And you took some lessons and you started dancing. So it was kind of a natural ability for you. It must have been to have fallen into it that really easily. No.
I mean, I went to. The reason I started taking dance classes, I was dating a woman who was in this dance class. And I went to talk to her one day, and all these other women, Jason Kanda's mother, Jason is on our board as well, was in that class, and they said, "Hey, why don't you come dance? Why don't you come to class?" And I went, "Okay." And I went to my car, got a pair of shorts and joined the dance class, and then I was stuck. And so I kept going to class, and about 3 months later, I got asked to understudy. And the only reason I think I could have been a dancer at my age, which was, I was in my 40s already, was that I'd been an athlete as, when I was younger, and I was an actor, so
Yeah.
I had a kind of sensibility of what to do on stage. And then the technique was a lot of hard work.
But that woman that you liked was in the class, so it made it that much
Yeah.
easier, because it's the only dance there is.
Yeah, exactly.
I got that. So why do you think it is, I mean, John, you have something of an engineering brain, I believe. I have seen you be drawn to solve problems. That's who you are. That's not necessarily an artistic part of what we think of in the artist's toolbox, the need to solve problems, right?
I disagree. I think artists are solving problems all the time.
Elaborate on that.
Well, I mean, I especially think of it as from a director's point of view, because you have a text and you have actors and you have to put them together and you have to make it work.
Okay, a director's point of view.
Yeah.
You have to relay, and sometimes that involves a great deal of...
Yeah. And it's almost like moving things around, fitting things in, solving a puzzle.
Okay, that I'll buy. Do you feel that when you were working as an actor as well?
Yeah, kind of. I think so. I mean, you read the part and you try to understand what the part is about, what the character is about, what the person, where they fit in the play, what the play is about too, and so that's always interesting kind of problem solving. Well, maybe it's just a matter of semantics what we're talking about.
Yeah, maybe. I consider myself a problem solver also. At work as a managing director in any career that I've had, but as an actor, that's I think about my work in terms of there's a system, there's a process to it.
Oh yeah, sure.
But also there's a gut.
Oh yeah.
That doesn't necessarily come into play with the engineering mind. If you're solving a problem, and I've seen you when I've said, John, I have this great big banner that I need to hang, and we've got 15 minutes, and you get that banner hung.
I don't know. Maybe to me it's all one thing, kind of. It's all a matter of making stuff work. I mean, I had this experience in North Carolina. I was very lucky. The professor I followed in North Carolina had a show the first year I was there, and he and his assistant director had a disagreement, and she quit. So they asked me, even though I was new in the program, and I said okay. And we'd have conversations, and we said, and he has great creative ideas, amazing creative ideas. And we said, if we get 40% of our ideas on stage, we'll be happy. And then we got 99.9% of the ideas on stage. And at the end of the process, he said to me, John, when I took you on as assistant director, I thought, I'm going to have all these wonderful, crazy ideas, and John will say, no, you can't do that. No. He said, you haven't said no once. You just figure out how to do it. And I went, yeah, okay.
That's the problem solving right there. Okay, we got to take another break. We'll be right back. This is The Arts in Hawaii, coming to you from Pioneer Plaza in Honolulu. We'll be right back.
I'm Hong Jiang, host for Asia in Review on Tuesdays.
And I'm David Day, host for Asian Review on Thursdays. Both of us broadcast our respective shows at 4 p.m.
And my topics tend to deal with questions related to environment, culture, history, and sometimes human rights.
And my shows tend to be on international business, foreign policy, geopolitics, and national security. And you can watch our shows live on the ThinkTech website at thinktechhawaii.com.
And you can also watch us on YouTube or Olalo.
So come join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'm David Day.
And on Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I'm Hong Jiang.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Hi, we're back. This is The Arts in Hawaii on the ThinkTech Hawaii digital series, and I'm going to say a couple of things really quickly because I've gotten some notes from a caring viewer. The other people in the show, Coy Like a Fish, are Nani Morita, Reb Allen, and I mispronounced Justin's name. His last name is Fragiao. Thank you. I want to go back to this when we were talking about the speech contests that you're a part of, because it hadn't occurred to me before that I feel that so much has changed in theater, so much has changed in dance, and so many other forms of expression over the last 40 years, almost 50. But I don't know that speech fits in there. I don't know that. And here's something I was thinking about. I'm writing an article for a periodical here, and I typed FYI, and then I thought, oh, I should spell that out. And I thought, no, why should I? Because we are in a different place than we were. So we are in a performance art didn't exist when I was in, it really was just starting to come to people's attention when I was in college. So much has changed. Has that really happened with speech?
I don't know. I don't think so. Well, I haven't been involved with it that long, but it seems to be kind of a conservative kind of aesthetic, and debate, doesn't change very much. So, I take that back. And debate has changed a little bit, because now they have a form called public forum debate, which is much quicker and much more like talking heads on TV that you see, where people just do a lot of arguing very quickly about issues of the day. But some of the things that we teach in speech and competitive speech, respect for your opponents, decorum, those kinds of things don't change. Although some of the students don't learn them very well anymore. Because maybe
it is changing, whether you like it or not.
Part of it is because they see people yelling at each other on TV, and so they think that's appropriate. And so when you're a speech judge, a lot of times I'll be writing down, I said, if you're rude, I'm going to mark you down. So be nice to your opponents, because respect is important in debate. So.
Oh, yes. I absolutely agree with that, but I have to also say, like, when I was in high school and involved in the speech process, there were still shows like One Day at a Time and The Jeffersons, where it was all about slinging, nasty things back and forth, and we had to practice the decorum, I don't know. I just feel like that. That avenue something should be tweaked there. Something should be happening differently there. So there's something for you to work on.
Maybe, we'll see.
Not that people should start tweeting or anything like that, but it just seems like it needs to catch up with the rest of what's going on.
I think in the debate field, it's slowly changing. Like debaters can use computers now, so they come with their cases prepared on computers. And they don't have huge file boxes and carry huge file boxes anymore. And then speakers, if you're doing interpretive speech, there's always new literature coming out in different ways of different kinds of stories that are being told. So those are, it's nice to see those.
Okay, we didn't need to digress there necessarily. All right, I just thought a bit, and I have you here, and you're so busy that I take advantage of you while I have you. What have we not covered? Directed productions for Kumukuhua. When are you directing again? When was the last show that you directed?
Well, I directed at school every year.
Other than school?
Yeah.
Other than school?
Let me think. Gosh, that's kind of hard to remember now. I don't remember. I lose track of when I did what, unless I have it in front of me.
What do you think? What do you think you would do if you couldn't be involved at mid-pac for whatever reason? Mid-pac that program went away.
I'd find someplace to teach and do the same things I do, but someplace else.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're pulled more so by literature or theater, or is it equal?
It's kind of equal, I think. I mean, the work that I like to do in theater is always interesting to me, not only as, you know, a theatrical piece, but also as literature. The words have to mean something, but, you know, image means something to me as well. So, you know, coming from my background as a dancer, as a mover, so all of those things, that kind of performance, that kind of art makes a difference.
So we're talking at Kumukuhua about putting together a literature to stage adaptation class, and how that you would be teaching.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, well, you're the one. It's been a while since we talked about it. Exactly. I'm not surprising you with this. What do you feel is your primary objective when you are adapting a piece? And I would like for it to be Hawaiian literature. Do you feel that your primary responsibility is being true to that piece, or primary desire being true to that piece, or taking it a step further?
You know, that's an interesting question. I think, given my background, I'm drawn to the literary value and translating that into a way that other people can see it that's not on the page. So I'm kind of like, I lean toward truth of the literature, as opposed to taking that as a base for some other theatricality, especially when working with an adapted piece. And that's not to say that's the only way, because like I know Harry Wong, who's our artistic director, can take a piece of literature and make it something completely out there, different.
Yeah.
You know? And we have different approaches to literary text, which I think is good. I mean, there's room for both. Like I look at his work and I respect it, and it's great. But it's not going to be the same thing I'm going to do. We might take the same text and we'll come up with two completely different things. So.
Well, and as a director, that's a difference. Some directors want to take. Some directors feel that it's very important to take what that playwright has written and be absolutely, you know, it is precious.
Right.
And then others
look at it
say,
as jumping off point.
It's already been, it's my jumping off point. It's already there. Why would I just do that again? So, yeah, they take it another step.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm anxious to see where we go with that class, and we are getting there. There's a lot going on at Kumukuhua, but the more I talk with people about it, the more I hear people who are really interested in assuring that the theater that we do is, I believe, a potential conduit to the world of just relaying our stories and who we are and creating that blanket of humanity, spreading the blanket of humanity around, that I think is really important, not only for us to do, but for us to encourage other people to do.
Right. And I think it would have some value because in Hawaii, so far, there are less playwrights than there are fiction writers. And there's a good chunk of, you know, narrative work or fiction work that we could translate to the stage.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, there's only a handful of playwrights who are working all the time to produce stuff directly for the stage. New
pieces. And I think that we could pretty quickly put together an entire season of that work. There, we'll do that next. We have to go. Thank you very much for being here.
Man, that went by quickly.
I know, right? It did. And part of it is because of having a good guest, because I'm really smart about who I invite on the show. Thank you so much for being here, John.
Thank you.
And I need to read this stuff now. We are wrapping up. I'm Donna Blanchard, proud managing director of Kumukuhua Theater and host of this show weekly on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock. Thank you very much to our production manager, Ian Davidson, who is in my ear, our communications director, Chrissy Guffigan, and to Jay Fidel, who somehow manages to put it all together. Thanks to you for being with us. Thanks to John for being with us. To check out previous broadcasts on YouTube, you can find all of them if you go to ThinkTechHawaii.com. That's where it all lives. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week. Like us on Facebook.